Okay, so thank you for that lovely introduction, Natalie. Thank you to both the Planning Committee here at the National Gallery and also to MAC, of course, for inviting me here and for accepting my paper. Natalie already told a bit about who I am. So I'm a PhD student at Leiden University, which is in the Netherlands. So I'm currently about 7 hours jet lagged. I'm in my final year, so I've been attending MAC every year, either via Skype or in person, to sort of really connect with the community of professionals in the Caribbean. And I really try every year to present my research so that my research is out there with the people who need it the most. I'm part of this research project called Nexus 1492, which is an interdisciplinary research project mainly led by archaeologists, with network scientists, osteologists and heritage professionals, as well as computer scientists. Mostly they're focusing on sort of rewriting this chapter surrounding the history of 1492 in the Caribbean from an indigenous perspective. So they're excavating a lot of indigenous sites and contact sites to really find out, you know, what happened that, you know, the Spanish and other European sources might have written down differently. Within that, I focus on museums, as I already mentioned, and my real focus of interest is community engagement. So I want to see how are museums engaging with these diverse communities. Let's see. Does this work? Is it on? It should be on. Let's see. No. Else I will just manually click. There we go. Quick outline of what I'll talk about today. So I know some of you already know from previous years, but I'll just mention my research that I've done so far. How I define community engagement, so what I look at. Again, with co-curation and co-creation, how do I define that? And I'll mention a couple of examples from throughout the region, as we've heard earlier today as well. Working in these museums can be like being a bit in a bubble, so it's always nice to hear about examples happening throughout the region. And then I'll focus mainly on this exhibition, a co-curated exhibition on the topic of Bengals of Barbados, which happened at the Barbados Museum. And then I'll end by discussing some of the sort of pitfalls and solutions that we can apply when we're trying to do community engagement. So this is a bit of a map of where I've been throughout my research. Obviously now I can add a new one with Cayman. And so far I've already been up to 5 extra museums and narrative sites with the tour yesterday. But you can see that I've sort of tried to go through English, Spanish, French, Dutch-speaking islands, Lesser Antilles, Greater Antilles, mainland countries, to try to get really an idea of what are museums in the Caribbean like. And as we know, every island is so unique, the communities are unique, how are they engaging with their communities? And this is a bit of a map that I've been working on that just shows all the museums I've been to, which I'm working on visualizing slightly better. And this is kind of the core of a database that I've done, in which I have entries on every museum that I visited. What is the museum about? What participatory elements do they have? What's their contact information? Who have I met? What is sort of the topic, the themes, and all of that, which I have in this book. I printed one copy. This is the only copy I have. And this holds most of the places I visited so far, except for the more recent ones. So if at any point you want to see this, I'm happy to show you. After I had a bit of an idea of the region as a whole, I decided to do 2 case studies. The first one I did in Dominica at the Kalinago territory, a museum called the Kalinago Barama Ote. And this is was an indigenous initiative. So the Kalinago community had wanted to have this sort of, they called it a Carib village initially. Now it's the village by the sea. They really wanted to have a sort of tourist attraction. And I wanted to study really, not so much how do visitors feel about this place, but how does the community feel about this place. And it was interesting because everyone without fail said this was very important, but they weren't as convinced of the benefit, because they saw, even though the 150 people I interviewed, only 6 of them hadn't been to the site. Everyone uses the site all the time, but they don't see the visitation necessarily as something of benefit to them. They think of benefit only in financial terms. So this was something we discussed on. Actually using the site is already something of benefit. The second case study, which I will talk later about, was at the Barbados Museum of Historical Society, a completely different community. So I'll bring that up. So the way I look at community engagement is that in the broadest sense, it's basically all of the ways in which community members are involved in or involve themselves in the museum process. And for my research, I've sort of split this up in museum foundation and organization. So setting up a museum or being part of the staff, this diversity in staff, or exhibition creation or sort of the more public side collections and so on, to museum visitation, to having these activities or programs where people can actually do something when they're there. So it's kind of all kinds of different participatory methods that I've looked at. And of course another resource here is Nina Simon's Participatory Museum, which I also find has sort of excellent categories on how to be participatory. Co-curation, I guess for a lot of you this is kind of common knowledge again, but co-curation I've seen as really curating an exhibition, and then co-creation is kind of collaboratively doing anything apart from that, so beyond really an exhibition as sort of a contained project to different things. And both the process and the project depend on a number of factors. So what is the nature of the community, the museum, what are the aims of all the parties involved, what do they want to get out of it, what are the available resources, time, money, space, all of these things and limitations. And how does this pan out in the few examples? This is one of my favorite ones that I visited in Guadeloupe, the Écomusée Créolate. It was an initiative basically by a single individual who decided that local traditions were being lost. And he started very small with sort of a, kind of like a botanical garden, but actually each plant has a page which will include recipes, instructions for medicine, traditional stories that go along with the use. And it kind of expanded over time, so he kept involving more and more people. The initial step was to have these ateliers, which are like, sort of like workshops that are part of the museum. People can come there. And so he has someone who goes there and does wooden toy making. So he helps this person to sort of keep his craft alive, and it's happening within the museum space. And then another initiative was these community cupboards, which I thought was very cool. Basically, they built these empty cupboards for every commune in the whole of Guadeloupe. And they sent out requests to someone living there, or a school, or a teacher, or whoever. Fill it with things that represent your commune. And each one is entirely different. Some of them have long sheets of paper with specific histories, and others have just craft projects by school children. And in effect, everyone has a unique character that really comes across. And in this way, a museum that was sort of the idea of one person really came to represent the whole island. Some of you will also know this example, which is from the National Museum Jamaica a few years ago, where they did the Rastafari exhibition. This was actually an exhibition that was purchased from the States. I can't remember exactly where. Smithsonian. And they decided that they need to sort of redesign it in order to really fit with the museum. So they decided to co-curate it with various members of the Rastafari communities, and in doing so they realized this is not one community, obviously. There's a lot of different voices in that community who agree, disagree, and it was actually a very difficult process to sort of create a new exhibition out of this. I think they may have underestimated how much time was needed to sort of get some sort of consensus. But what they did in the end was do double panel text. So you have sort of the proper English panel text, I suppose you could say, and ones that are more dialectic. So really written by members of the community. And depending on who is touring you, they will use one of the two panels. So you also have members of the Rastafari community who don't like the Rastafari panels and instead use the more traditional panels. But I think it's great that actually the community members are guiding through this exhibition as well. Another eco-museum, this one on Marigalan, so close to W, which is one of the older ones that was really called an eco-museum in the region from the 80s. The entire museum is founded on donated objects. So there was no museum. Someone decided it would be a good idea and said, what we need is, we need things that reflect local traditional ways of life, whether fishing, housework, anything. So they basically put out a call, and the entire museum is made by these objects. There's nothing that has been bought or loaned from elsewhere or anything. So it's a really great sort of testimony to Regalan. This one I just like to throw in from Curacao, which I find really interesting. It's a great house, of which there are quite many on Curacao, more than there are in Cayman, apparently. And it's a relatively new museum, opened in 2006, I believe. And what they've done is they have, the entire exhibition is voiced through a documentary. And the documentary is all of people who either used to live on the estate themselves or are descendants of people who lived on the estates. So they really know the land and the landscape surrounding the museum, so they can tell really fascinating things about how they used to actually live there and use the space, and not just a great house, but the entire landscape surrounding it. So this is basically the case study that I want to end up with. What happened is that this gentleman on the left, Mr. Subir Nakuda, he wrote a book called Bengal to Barbados, which is entirely done by his own research. He's Bengali himself, or Gujarati. And he felt that this history of 100 years of the East Indian community in Barbados really deserved more than a book, so he really wanted to do an exhibition. And he approached the museum and asked, can we think of something? Because I think we need more awareness about this community. But what happens is that this community has quite an interesting and complicated history. So there have been several waves of migration, all within the last 100 years. So unlike with Trinidad, this is not a community that's a result of indentureship, for instance. All of them have migrated sort of because of push and pull factors related to the situation in either India or Barbados. And actually all of the initial migrants accidentally came to Barbados when they were planning to go to Brazil or Trinidad or elsewhere, and sort of ended up on boats to Barbados. But out of sort of 5 migration streams in these 100 years, you have 2 major groups. From here, Gujarat, they're predominantly Muslim communities. So you have the Gujarati Muslims as one of the main pillars of today's community. And the other one is here from Sindh, which at the time was India, but after partition became Pakistan, who are predominantly Hindu. So you have these 2 groups. The Hindu Sindhis have a history of being businessmen and shop owners. The Gujarati Muslims have a history of being farmers who came to Barbados and became itinerant traders. So they kind of have this sort of status difference, religious difference, and all kinds of differences within the community. And yet the idea was to do an exhibition with all of these people. So in my research, one of the first things that came out is obviously, again, it is a very heterogeneous community. You can't just talk about the East Indian community really, because they're quite diverse. And so when I asked them about what communities do you consider yourself a part of, almost everyone would pick a religious sort of category, and fewer would pick cultural categories, but then often multiple. So they'd say they'd be Caribbean and Barbadian. But of everyone I interviewed, I had only 30% who said that they were East Indian, even though this was, of course, the target group of the survey. So you can see that they don't all have that strong connection. And what was interesting is that specifically the Muslims, so the Gujarati Muslims, identified as East Indian. And the Sindhi Hindu did not identify as East Indian. So they don't see themselves part of that collective community. And that led to a lack in connection with the exhibition theme, which was about the East Indian community. And so the Hindus did not feel like this was about them. And so when I asked them whether this exhibition was important for their community, they said no. And the others said sort of yes. So there was this gap between people who didn't feel connected to the community, and specifically the Hindu who said no, it's not that important, or maybe a little, and those who said it's very important. So what I worked with was to make some strategic recommendations, because the process was still ongoing. And more or less all of these things were things that they kind of already knew within the planning committee, because of course these issues become apparent, but it was nice to be able to sort of have those verified. And so we discussed about really in general creating more awareness for the project, because at the start only the few people who had initiated the project knew about it, and the community at large had sort of no idea. Although a lot of them said that if they had known about it, they probably would want to contribute because it seemed interesting. So it was an idea of how do we engage more people, and specifically to really sort of make it important to them, because a lot of the ways they talked about the exhibition was they wanted Barbadians to be more aware of us. So they saw the exhibition really like kind of outward reaching to make other people aware of them rather than to have them build a stronger community for themselves. And so one of my recommendations was to invest more time, and the exhibition is still in process, even though it's supposed to go up in the summer, because there really was more time needed to create this bond. So my final points are to talk about some of the common sort of pitfalls and solutions. Oftentimes, if there's different expectations, needs between the parties, can lead to conflict, disappointment. Obviously, you need to outline your needs at an early stage. If there's a power imbalance, it can lead to a sense of exploitation for involved community members. What do? Be prepared to actually share power. Like, don't just say you're going to do community engagement, but actually give them power to make a difference. Same, fragmentary involvement, this sort of tokenistic sense of community engagement. Again, actually incorporate their input meaningfully. So don't just say like, oh, consult with us, etc. We have all your input, and then put it in a drawer. Which tends to happen, right? So, a sense of unequal access. A lot of times museums will think, we'll invite you here, and we'll do a meeting, and then we'll talk. And people can feel very uncomfortable, so actually also meet the community in their own space. Some community members will be speaking for all. Obviously, this can lead to a problem with representation, so involve more community members as necessary. And a shortage of time is often a problem within museums, because we're on deadlines and we have dates for when the exhibition should go up, and we sort of rush, and then we tend to prioritize our own needs. So really plan sufficient time for community engagement to also extend before, after the exhibition is up. And why this is important, obviously, I like this quote by Laura Jane Smith, who says that the museum visit may be understood analytically as a cultural performance in which people either consciously or unconsciously seek to have their views, sense of self, and social and cultural belonging reinforced. So it's a really powerful sort of identity formation thing that we should be encouraging with multiple communities, which is why we should support community museums. And those of us who work more with national museums, we need to value sort of community museums for what they are, share expertise, share knowledge, take them seriously, because they're reaching out perhaps to communities that you're not. So I think that's a very important contribution. And thank you.